The Romans named this planet after a god who devoured his own sons. They didn't know about the rings. They simply looked up, watched that pale golden dot crawl across the sky, and thought, that one feels like death. They were more right than they could have possibly imagined. Wrapped around this monster, like a halo on a skull, are the rings. From 1 billion kilometers away, they look like perfection. Clean golden bands, smooth as glass. For centuries, we assumed they were eternal, built with the planet 4.5 billion years ago. But we were wrong. The rings are young, disturbingly young, likely 100 to 200 million years old. When dinosaurs walked the earth, Saturn was naked. No rings, no crown, just a bare giant sitting alone in the dark. Something happened after the dinosaurs. A moon wandered past the invisible boundary called the Roche limit, where Saturn's gravity becomes stronger than an object's ability to hold itself together. And Saturn pulled it apart. Piece by piece, the crust ripped from the core, a world unmade into trillions of frozen shards. Those shards are what we call beautiful. If you flew into them, the beauty would vanish. You would find yourself inside a blizzard of jagged ice and rock, fragments from grains of dust to blocks the size of houses, screaming around the planet at tens of thousands of kilometers per hour, colliding, shattering, reforming. The rings stretch 300,000 kilometers wide, but are barely 10 meters thick in places, a razor blade made of debris, and they are dying. Saturn pulls 10,000 kilograms of ice into its atmosphere every single second. In 100 million years, the rings will be completely gone. We are alive during the only silver of cosmic time, where Saturn wears the remains of the world it destroyed. The Roman god ate his child, and now he is swallowing the evidence. Look at the North Pole. On any normal planet, storms form in circles or spirals. Nature doesn't build corners, but Saturn does. A perfect hexagon, more than 30,000 kilometers across, large enough to swallow 4 Earths, with a vortex spinning at its center like an eye that refuses to blink. Voyager saw it in the 1980s. Cassini confirmed it decades later. It has not moved. It has not broken apart. No one can fully explain it. A geometric scar branded into a world made of gas. And every 30 Earth years, the real monster wakes. A storm erupts, so massive it wraps around the entire planet. Lightning 10,000 times more powerful than anything on Earth. Clouds of ammonia ice surge from the deep interior, turning Saturn's golden face ghostly pale, as though something trapped in the core has been crawling upward for 3 decades and finally breaks the surface. Then silence. Gold returns and Saturn waits. Now leave the planet, move outward, past the debris, into the empire. Saturn holds over 140 moons. 2 of them have quietly become the most important places in the solar system. Imagine descending through a thick orange haze onto Titan. The air pressure on the surface is higher than Earth's. Below the clouds you see river valleys, coastlines, vast dark seas. For one moment, it feels like home. Then the chemistry hits. The temperature is minus 179 degrees Celsius. The rivers are liquid methane. The seas are acetane. If you fell into one of those dark, still lakes, You would not freeze slowly, you would shatter instantly. Like glass dropped on stone, Titan rebuilt Earth from the wrong ingredients and forgot what life needs to breathe. Then there is Enceladus, 500 kilometers wide, a frozen ball that should have been dead billions of years ago. But at its south pole, long fractures split the ice, and from these wounds, enormous geysers erupt hundreds of kilometers into space. Saturn's gravity kneads this moon like a fist squeezing wet cloth, keeping a global ocean liquid beneath the shell. That ocean has salt, heat, complex organic molecules, hydrothermal vents on the floor, the exact chemistry that supports life. In total darkness at the bottom of Earth's deepest seas, we went to Saturn looking for gas and storms. But we may have stumbled onto neighbors. To learn all of this, we had to lose something. Cassini orbited Saturn for 13 years. It mapped the rings and the geysers of Enceladus and dropped a probe through the clouds of Titan. Then the fuel ran out. If the spacecraft drifted, it might crash into one of those moons and contaminate them with Earth's bacteria. So they gave Cassini one last command: dive. On September 15th, 2017, it fell into Saturn's atmosphere, transmitting for 91 seconds while the heat tore it apart. Then, the signal stopped. The clouds closed. The winds screamed on. Saturn didn't notice. It simply took what we offered, the way it always does. We named it after a Roman god who devoured his children, and 4,000 years later, we sent in one of ours. So when you see Saturn in a photograph, golden and impossibly beautiful, remember you are looking at a temporary crime scene. The rings are falling, the moons are cracking, the storms are waiting. This is Saturn.